Go join palms. And repeat after me. I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
Keeping the palms joined. Put the palms down. All right, good morning, everybody. How are you all doing today? Good. Anyone here for the first time? And in the front row, too. Very brave. What brings you here?
Just learn something new, and my open heart, and just trying to grow spiritually.
So all of you who come every day for years should do that. Can you repeat it? Thanks. Can you repeat exactly what you just said, or you want me?
I'm just looking for a new experience, and I'm in my search of spiritual growth, and I came with an open mind and an open heart.
Yes, very beautiful. Different, but very beautiful. First thing you said was to learn something new. Second thing was to open your heart. And third was to grow spiritually. You, in essence, said the same thing the second time.
An open mind.
An open mind. When you show up here, are you still trying to learn something new? Or have you just carried in all your fixed ideas of what you think you already know, and you're trying to prove or disprove them? These are very different practices. And something that happens so often around places like this. In Zen practice, we call this beginner's mind. And to me, that's why it's such a beautiful practice. Because what can happen is the more we're around places like this, meditation spaces, spiritual places, whatever that means for you, we tend to build some idea of what we think is going on. And then we stick to that. And then we roam around all day long trying to prove or disprove that. As opposed to daily being open to learning something new. Which always and only starts with opening the heart and opening the mind. So, thanks for sharing that, kicking it off. No pressure, but anyone else here for the first time that wants to share one? Who else is here for the first time? Oh, come on. Are you here for the first time?
Yes, I am.
It was that guilty smile that gave you away. And then I saw Kat trying to tap you, so that also confirmed. Yeah. Well, I now know what brought you here, but what brings you here?
Same thing, new experience, trying something different.
Yeah. And what's wrong with the old experience? Anything?
I'm in the military, so it's
A
a little different.
little different. It's a lot different. Yeah. Thank you for being in the military. Appreciate it. Glad you're here. Anybody else? Those who come back, why? Why show up?
Because I miss you so much.
Seriously. I think it's time you look at the real answer to that. Some people use humor to escape what's actually going on. So why do you really show up?
I was lonely.
Because you were lonely. That's a very different answer. That's a much better answer. That's a much more honest answer.
Well, so I'm not gonna contest the original, what you originally said.
I'm not going to argue. I miss you as well, right? But I just want to highlight what's really underneath that is loneliness. What else? Yeah.
I'm having a hard time doing it on my own.
Hard time doing it on your own. What does that mean to you?
Doing it, just having the knowledge of the practices and putting them into action in my daily life. I'm hitting some sort of proverbial wall
Yeah.
and I'm able to do it in this space. Then I go back out into the larger space and I'm losing myself. So I'm trying to touch back home. It's almost like this is a stronger beacon of home to me, whatever that means.
Sure.
And then I want to bring that out to my I'm having a hard time.
Yeah. I saw a lot of head nodding. Do you want to expand on that? What that means to you as well?
So ditto what she said, but also just the ability to center and like pull in the good energy. Like I can try and generate energy, but I also need it
Sure.
to, like-minded and love-filled energy in order to grow my own and to continue to spread it. And when I'm in situations that or environments that are toxic or whatever, it's extremely difficult.
Yeah.
I mean, set aside the energy just to
Sure.
not, yeah, and to just maintain some humility. Like I love the beginning meditation. I'll be a beginning meditator until
Till we
I
die.
take my last
Yeah.
breath. Yeah, and then I don't know what I'll be after that. But
You know, it's interesting, and then we'll start with the meditation, but two things. One is that it's so common for people to say they have a hard time doing this on their own, at home, wherever it might be. And yes, to echo what you shared, it really is about bringing this practice into your daily life. Because learning to meditate and looking at loving kindness and compassion and all these kind of common Buddhist expressions and phrases and words, if you can't bring them into your daily life, then what's the point? Then you're just kind of like in this facade of like, look at me, I'm doing this Buddhist thing. And then the moment you walk out the door, that's gone. Now, here's the interesting thing to your comment about toxic places. You know the people that make up all those toxic environments that you're talking about? Do you know where they are? You all know me way too well. Who was that first loud laugh? I think it was a guy right in here somewhere. But I think I've made my point. That was easier than I thought. The toxic people that you're talking about in the places that you call toxic are right here. Nothing against all you,
no,
non-toxic people. But what this reminds us of is that if you can come to a place like this, any meditation, spiritual place, and you can feel at home and you can feel grounded, you can feel okay, it's not these people. I know a lot of these people. It's you. So when you come here, your heart is open, your mind is open. We've kind of surrendered to, I'm just going to be present and enjoy the beauty of sitting in this space. Now, when you go into the environments that you would normally refer to as toxic, we've gone in already closed and tightened up and angry and furious. We don't even give it a chance. Make sense? So I appreciate you highlighting that, because that's what we tend to do is we identify things in places as toxic, but it's us and we carry that where we go. So we practice.
predetermining how it's gonna feel.
Yeah,
before
we already know.
Yeah.
All right, so with that, I appreciate you all sharing. Thank you. For those who are joining virtually, good morning. Welcome to our millions of YouTube followers all over the globe. Thanks for being here. We'll start with the meditation practice. A couple things I'll tell you before we begin. Nothing's going to happen to you, right? You're not going to float away. You're not going to have any mystical, magical experiences. The mind that races all day long is not going to shut off. Don't judge your practice, meaning don't ask yourself, is it working or not working? Are you doing it right or wrong? We're just going to sit, we're going to breathe. You'll hear sounds inside, sounds outside. All right, this is life. These sounds are not distractions. This is just what's going on around us, and we're working on sitting with all of it. Posture, you want to be comfortable. If you are on a cushion, often helps sliding to the front third, pushing the stomach forward. If you're on a bench or chair, however you're seated, just trying to sit up straight, relaxing the hands and shoulders. If you need to move, simply move. Movement doesn't make you a bad meditator, just means your leg hurts. I'll guide us as we begin, and we'll settle into a little bit of silence. Most important, do not expect anything. We're just going to sit and breathe. And starting with the eyes closed, if comfortable, or slightly open. Mouth is open or closed. We'll start with taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And eventually, settle into a natural rhythm of the breath. Noticing the mind as it wanders, jumping from thought to thought. We'll start with gently guiding the attention, focus, to the stomach or chest. Breathing in, feel them rise. Breathing out, they fall. Simply continue this practice, observing sensation of breath. Expecting nothing but to sit and breathe. As the mind wanders, lost in thought, recognize it. Release that thought. Return attention, focus to the breath. Where's your mind? Lost in thought? Return to breath. Learning to be comfortable in stillness, in quiet. Simply sitting, breathing. Breathing in. Follow breath in. Breathing out. Follow breath out. And with the body still, rested, and the speech quiet, aware of all sounds, and the mind learning to settle. Know what it's like to just sit and breathe. Knowing with each breath, there's nothing else to do. Nowhere else to go. And no one else to be. Everything beautiful, exactly as it is. Sitting, breathing. And once again, taking 3 deep breaths slowly. As you slowly open the eyes, slowly beginning to move. The most important with the practice of meditation is to recognize how you feel now, immediately after. Compare this to how you typically feel throughout your day. Recognize the difference, if there is one. Ask yourselves how you'd prefer to feel every day for the rest of your life. And realize however you feel now, if it's quiet, calm, and still, or a busy mind, racing mind, whatever you're sitting with at this moment, has nothing to do with anything I said. Has nothing to do with how we sit and hold the hands across the legs. It's nothing to do with the sounds around us or anything else for that matter. It's everything to do with your own mind and your own mind's reaction to an external condition. This is what the Buddha called pratitya samuppada, means dependent origination. This is the basis of the Buddha's awakening. The word Buddha simply means awaken. He was a human being, no different than any one of us. He began to understand why he suffered, why he got angry, sad, depressed, stressed, anxious. He began to understand the causal relationship of all phenomena. And what that means, very simply, for all of us, regardless of where you come from or what you believe in or where you think you're going, your whole life is filled with things that happen. You react. More stuff happens. More reactions. That's it. This practice is learning what it's like to respond to something quietly, peacefully, still. Because for most of us, the way you responded to the last 20 minutes is quite different from how you respond to everything else that's happening throughout your day. So all we're working on is closing the gap to where the way you feel now is closer to how you feel always. Just as driven, motivated, productive, successful, whatever that means to you in your respective lives. But with a mind that's steady, clear, focused, distracted by nothing, disturbed by no one. This practice is not always easy. It's not always fun. It's not an escape, as we often might think it is. It's direct perception into the present moment. And as we know all too well, our present moments are filled with tremendous difficulty, challenges, obstacles. And this practice is learning to be with each moment as it arises. Meditation is free. Buddhist practice is free. It's sitting, breathing, and becoming aware of everything you think, everything you say, and everything you do. And understanding the intention behind it. We spend so much time trying to fix, change, control, manipulate everything around us. We can get very lost there. It makes up much of our day. And this practice is learning to change your mind and your reaction to the world around you. And in those moments when you respond differently from how you normally would to, say, toxic situations, toxic environments, toxic groups, or whatever it might be, when we go into each situation with an open mind and an open heart, it can drastically change the situation. But it is a practice. It's not a quick fix. It's not a 6-month course and all of a sudden you get it. I wish it were that easy. It's just a daily, lifelong practice. And that's all. And very often, the longer you practice, the more challenging it gets initially. Because when you begin to become aware of our own levels of greed and anger and ignorance, our own levels of delusion, cravings and attachments, when you become aware of these things, then the challenge is to work through them. So awareness is great, but then what? To just sit and talk about this stuff doesn't do you any good. Talking about Buddhism, Buddhist phrases, Buddhist words, Buddhist concepts don't do you any good if you can't put them into practice. So with that, I'll pause. For me, I really just prefer to respond to questions. Meditation, Buddhist practice, anything you're sitting with. And for those joining virtually, again, welcome. Glad you're here. As you are, feel free to chime in, say hello. There's a chat box somewhere on your screen. So we'll use the rest of our brief time this morning for questions. Feel free to put anything there in the chat box. I'll do my best to respond virtually as well. So we'll open up to questions. Meditation, Buddhist practice, anything you're sitting with. Yes, I see a hand.
So you just said something, awareness is great, but then what? So then what?
Yeah. Great question, Summer. Then what? What do you think? I mean, so just for those who maybe didn't hear it, you said that I just said that awareness is great, but then what? And your question is, but yeah, then what? Well, what do you think? You're smart.
I mean, going in with an open heart and open mind.
Okay.
Letting things just be,
Did you say letting things just be?
or just accepting as things are.
Okay. I'm not going to argue with or disagree with necessarily with any of those things, but there was one word I was kind of hoping or listening for that I didn't hear. Very often when we become aware of things in our lives that are unhealthy, toxic, whatever it might be, there's something we have to do. Change. What I heard you say had more to do with awareness, acceptance, embracing, I'm just adding words that you didn't add, having to do with others. But here's the thing. This practice is about us working on change. Not accepting others for their miserable ways of being and just waiting for them to change or accepting that they're never going to change. That doesn't do you any good. Because when we try to accept things, I'm not suggesting that I'm not suggesting that's a bad practice or not helpful. What I'm suggesting is to look a little deeper. When we're saying I want to accept things, what we're really saying is I still don't like it. Or it's wrong, but I'm going to learn to be okay with it. As opposed to maybe shifting our views a little bit where we try to understand why people are the way they are. And then ultimately, this practice is always a mirror. And it's coming back on us. So when I talk about awareness, what I'm really referring to specifically, as the Buddha taught the three poisons, greed, anger, ignorance. I mean, this is basic Buddhism 101, core teachings, why we suffer, why we struggle throughout our day. We're often greedy, we're often angry, we're often ignorant. Meaning we're ignoring reality and we're lost in our delusional mind. So as the Buddha taught very clearly, the three practices to overcome greed, anger, ignorance is the practice of generosity to overcome greed, the practice of compassion to overcome anger, and the practice of wisdom to overcome ignorance. So when we become aware of our own greed, our own anger, our own ignorance, then we have to change and practice more generosity, compassion, and wisdom. Does that help? Yeah, sorry. It comes back to us having to do the work. And that's why I say it's not easy at first. It's very often for us to just get lost in our own ignorance and denial and blame everybody else and just sit around waiting for them to change. How long is that going to take? So the beauty of this practice is we own it. And we say, look, I'm done trying to change anybody else. I have to change. And when we change, we're no longer accepting the way people are, we're understanding the way they are. And these are two very different things. So I hope that's helpful. Other thoughts, questions? Yeah.
Recently, someone had mentioned doing a 10-day silent retreat, and my wife and I were wondering, do you get to journal during a silent retreat, or is that not allowed?
I'm pretty sure the Goenka retreats you don't journal, but yeah, I remember years ago. So the question for those who didn't hear it was recently somebody asked about, and I talk often about it's led by the SN Goenka. It's a organization. He passed away years back, but they do a 10-day silent retreat. Very famous Vipassana practice. They're all over the world. You have to, apply for them, and sometimes takes months before they let you in. Not out of like approving you, just more out of demand, really. So they're 10-day silent retreats, and the question was, do you get? Your wife and I were wondering if you get to journal in them. So here's my response to that, completely ignoring the question about the 10-day retreat, is the idea behind silence in this context is what do you think?
Contemplation.
Contemplation. Contemplate, to listen. To what?
Your own thoughts.
Your own thoughts. And what do we spend so much of our time doing all day long? Go ahead. I wish you could all see the looks on these faces that I see. It's priceless.
Thinking.
Thinking and what?
Judging, contemplating.
Judging. We're getting closer, huh? Analyzing, talking, expressing, projecting. Do you ever just sit with your thoughts and let them be for hours and hours and hours? Or do you have to immediately express it somehow? Or are you patient and wait 5 whole minutes before you express it? I had a friend years ago, this is a whole lifetime ago, and he always said, I'll be kind. He just said things he shouldn't say. And so we had this rule. His name was Brian. And Brian Delaney passed away a handful of years ago. But we had this rule, and we called it the Brian rule, that before he spoke, he had to count to 3 before he said anything. And then you knew he was going to say something he shouldn't say. And he would go 1, 2, 3, and then he would say it anyways, right? So this idea of, again, I'm not knocking the beautiful question. Journaling is wonderful. I always talk about if you're a college kid these days, you got like in your right hand is your water bottle and your left hand is your journal, right? So I'm not anti-journaling. So all you journalers, please don't hold this against me. I'm just suggesting that journaling is still expressing. So in a moment of really trying to do a 10-day silent retreat, just be with self and non-self all at the same time without having to express it or get it out.
Sure. I think my wife's point, the reason she asked it was that she's like, I have thoughts just going all day long. They're crazy thoughts, and I want to get them out.
Yes.
And
correct.
Could I?
And I'm glad, it's nice of you to recognize that your wife is the only one with crazy thoughts. I just want to make sure you all heard me say that. Throwing the wife under the bus, right? So as we all have crazy thoughts all day long, and in defense of your wife who can't sit here and defend herself, I will say we all have crazy thoughts all day long. And yes, I understand that her idea is like, I have all these crazy thoughts, I want to get them out. This practice isn't about getting them out. That's the problem all day long, is we have crazy thoughts all day long, and we're throwing them on people. A journal is a safer place, but it's still like purging them from your system. And the practice isn't about like purging things. It's about being with things. Because wouldn't it be nice if eventually the crazy thoughts just minimize slightly?
Understood.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. I see another hand. Yeah.
Sorry,
Oh, it's all right.
I'm chatty too. So you said something that was so profound when I first came.
Okay.
And it goes along with that compulsion, I think, to want to get everything out.
Mm.
And I just want to reiterate, it was so great. It was imagining an airplane. And it gets loud and loud, and maybe that's how the thoughts can be, and then it'll eventually go. Is that kind of like?
I love how the thing you thought that was so profound is the thing
know.
that every Buddhist meditation leader says. It's wonderful. It's the
I share it with
planes.
a lot of people, and they really appreciate it.
It's a beautiful metaphor, and for those who aren't familiar with it or haven't heard it or didn't hear, is the idea that as the thoughts arise, it's just like an airplane. As it gets over your head, it gets louder and louder and louder, and then as the plane passes, it gets quieter and quieter and quieter. And what we don't want to do with thoughts is, like an airplane, we're not trying to jump on the plane. Because then we're with the noise, and then we're just riding along with the noise. The practice is to recognize the thoughts as they arise and just let them settle without giving them life. So it's a beautiful practice, not an easy practice, of course, but that's why we use the breath or whatever. If you have a mantra, if you use a candle, a flower, whatever your meditation practice is, that's why we bring it back to a focus. Zen practice, we say single-minded focus. Because when we're focused on one thing, could be a breath, could be a mantra, could be a shoe, could be a bottle of water. If you're focused on one thing, what are you not focused on? Everything else. And when you focus on everything else, how does that tend to make you feel? Stressed out, overwhelmed, crazy. So, thank you. There's a question here from Jody. Says, meditation in the practice has been has done wonders for my psyche, but what about physical pain? I've been confined at home with, I think you mean to say sciatica and nerve pain, and my mind just goes straight to that. Yeah, I mean, Jody, I hear you and I feel for you, and I'm sorry for your pain, the physical pain. Your question very specifically is, will meditation help physical pain? I mean, you didn't ask it that way, but that's what I'm hearing. And the answer to that is no. I wish it would. But the practice and the teachings, there's a teaching called the second arrow. And the reality is, as we age, and not even as we age, at all ages, we get physical pain. As we age, it gets worse, potentially. And the second arrow teaching is to recognize that as physical pain arises, and chronic pain, it's there. So we have physical pain. Then we get frustrated because we have physical pain. Now we're frustrated and in pain. Now we're angry because we're frustrated and we're in physical pain. Now we're sad because we're angry, because we're frustrated and we're in physical pain. And now we're depressed because we're sad, because we're angry, because we're frustrated, that we're in physical pain. A lot of extra arrows we added on top of physical pain. When you are in physical pain, recognize it. Become aware of it. That's the practice. Breathing in, I'm in physical pain. Breathing out, I'm in physical pain. It won't take it away. But we're trying to minimize the emotional, additional emotional pain that we add on top of the physical pain. So, thanks, Jody. Other thoughts, questions? Yeah.
But back to that last question, there are physical benefits to meditation, correct?
Well, so the question is, but there are physical benefits to meditation, correct? That's your question.
No.
Well, your statement, right?
Statement.
Yeah.
From what I've been reading lately.
Yes.
Has to do with stress levels and cortisol reducing in your body and those benefits.
100% yes. So I'm no scientist, I'm no doctor, I've done no research, I got no letters after my name, and I'm definitely, and you know this, I'm just sharing this for everybody. I'm not the person who's going to sit up here and say, if you meditate, all your stuff is going to go away and you'll be healed and fixed after 6 weeks for, whatever. Are there benefits to meditation? Absolutely. When in another world I run where I would take meditation into schools, prisons, hospitals, things like that, in a secular mindset, right? What I would always tell people is that there's tons of research out there. His name is Dr. Richard Davidson out of University of Wisconsin. He's been close with the Dalai Lama for the last 30 years. He's probably one of, if not the leader in studying long-term effects that meditation has on the brain. I was actually in a study like 10 years ago. Did it work? No. When I came back, my parents said, so what'd they find? I said, absolutely nothing. My point is, yes, there's lots of research out there on the impacts that meditation has on the heart, has on the brain. It changes the gray matter. The research shows, and I worked with a Navy psychiatrist for 10 years who would look at the benefits of meditation and the impact it has on the changing the gray matter in the brain and sympathetic, parasympathetic nervous system, all that kind of stuff. I can speak all that lingo. I don't understand it, but I can speak it. But here's what I'll tell you. All the research in the world won't do me any good unless I do it. And here's what I know when I do meditation. I'm less angry, less reactive, less pissed off. That's all the research I need for me. So does meditation have benefits to it? Absolutely. But to blanket them based on some research, I don't find beneficial, because all that matters is what is meditation doing for you. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So I think that's where it's important. Yeah. What else? Thoughts, questions? Yeah.
So, I think this is a couple weeks ago, you talked about kind of the practice of meditation and therapy. I don't know if you remember this, right? And the kind of like pairing and the fact that they're different, but they go together well in a complementary sense.
Yes.
But I'm kind of thinking now about this articulation of thoughts, right? And the reason why one would journal at like a silent retreat. And I'm kind of wondering, part of what you do in therapy, right, is kind of practice communication, kind of communicating out your own thoughts to someone else, and hopefully bringing that communication into your life to other people.
Sure.
Is that not, though, then further anchoring yourself on? I'm kind of wondering, like, do those things go together? If what we're saying about the reason, one would avoid journaling at a silent retreat is to not kind of get so anchored or attached to those thoughts, then how does communication and therapy kind of play into that?
Well, yeah, great question. Let me just back up to preface for those who maybe didn't hear it. And I've been saying this for years, right? So many people come here are therapists or in therapy or both. I always joke and say half the people are in therapy and the other half are therapists, right? We split the room, okay? So I also, and again, this is just for anybody who hasn't heard me talk about this, I think both are incredibly important. Therapy and meditation and Buddhist practice, they're all three of those things are different. I think they're all important. And I never suggest one stop one or the other, right? Again, not a doctor, no, stay on your meds, stay with your appointments. Don't go to one Buddhist thing and then cancel your psychiatrist, please, right? But they are very different. And if I'm hearing your question correctly, you're asking, well, if journaling is therapeutic, are you asking me then why not do it at a Buddhist retreat? Because a Buddhist retreat is not therapy.
Right. I think, I guess it just seems like there's a certain danger to sort of anchoring yourself further in your stories about why you're feeling what you're feeling.
Understood. Okay. That clarified things for me. Now I understand what you're getting at. Where did I say anchor yourself in your stories? I didn't say that. When I said just be with thoughts as they arise, I'm not saying have a thought that arises and then spend the next 6 hours anchoring in that angry thought. That's not healthy, whether you're at some meditation retreat or anywhere else for that matter. What I'm thinking you did was, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but what it sounds like is when I said to Billy, you know, just be with your thoughts, you then said something to the effect of, well, if I'm going to be with my thoughts, oh no, and I'm angry or whatever the emotion is, and I'm going to sit with that for 6 hours, that's going to suck. I'm
Yeah.
paraphrasing completely, so please.
Yeah, I guess I'm more like, what are we doing in therapy then? Because aren't we like saying like, oh yeah, I thought this thing like 2 days ago, and now I'm telling you, and I'm kind of trying, like, right, you know, like you're
Both.
trying to.
Balance them both.
Uh.
I'm going to stress again, please do not go back to your therapist and say, hey, I'm going to drop you because I do meditation now, right? There's a benefit to both. And I also, and I mean this very seriously, I mean, we see 17 years, we've seen thousands and thousands of people come here and they're in bad shape. Severe trauma, severe PTSD, severe pain and suffering in this room right now. Heavy, heavy stuff. So I mean this very seriously. Continue with therapy. And my suggestion is not to try to figure out the difference between the two, nor to try to figure out is one better than the other. Because that's what I'm also hearing in you. The last part of what you just said is, well, then what's the point? Let the therapist work with you on what the point of therapy is. Don't try to bring the meditation stuff into it and be like, well, my meditation leader said this. You're not there for that. You're there because you need, I mean, don't take this the wrong way, but if someone's in therapy, they're there because they need therapy. Not to come in with their newfound Buddhist stuff and be like, yeah, I'm good. Buddhist says there's non-self, so I'm not suffering anymore. I don't need therapy. Yay. No. Don't try to compare the two. Does that make sense? Yeah. What else? Thoughts, questions? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not a therapist or in therapy.
Okay.
I am, I think, in the middle somewhere, just a human being trying to do the best of my each day.
Yeah.
You said something very simple that has a lot of meaning to me. That we shouldn't be here as an escape. And then I thought for a second. I said I came to learn and to change, and I'm actually here because I need to take a break
Yes.
from all the noise that is outside. So I'm going to go home with this thought in my mind. Do I actually try to escape, to hide from something, which I don't think it's what I actually want. I want to be more accepting or everything that is reality.
Sure.
So I actually think I have to be honest with myself and accept the idea that it's an escape.
Yes.
And maybe one day I'm going to feel comfortable in every place.
Yes.
And try to find somewhere to hide.
Yes. I appreciate, what's your name?
I'm Gina.
Gina, I appreciate you sharing that. I just want to do something real quick. Those of you who've been coming here, whether it's day 1, day 2, or for 10 years, how many of you came here initially because you were trying to escape and get away from something or someone? Turn around. And half the hands that aren't up, they just don't feel like raising their hands. Right? Good thing we're not talking about honesty today. To be fair, and let me just paraphrase for those who didn't hear what Gina said. What she said was that what I said earlier that was very profound to her, that really spoke to her, was when I mentioned not coming here for an escape. And then you said you had to ask yourself, am I really coming here for an escape or not? And one thing I want to point out, just because you are potentially coming here for an escape, that's okay too. I got into this practice 20 years ago. You know why? I was trying to escape from the life I was living. Most people come into this path and this practice, any sort of meditation, spiritual path, as an escape. Maybe not fair to say most, many. And so what you're seeing is that, okay, am I really trying to escape from something? And it's okay to utilize, to use, to pull from, and this is in Buddhism, we call it Sangha, it's a community. It's okay to utilize the community as a safe, sacred space. That's why it's there. For a brand new person, the question for you to really watch and ponder now is, even though early on it's an escape, then at what point in time does it just become a part of who you are and your way of life, to where we ultimately don't have to escape from anything or anyone? And we can still sit and learn about our mind, about our heart, about our emotions. We can still be with people and places that are maybe uncomfortable for us. So my main point is, even if you determine, which you said you're not sure yet, even if you determine that you did come initially as an escape, that's okay too.
I'm going back there.
Then you're going back there. Yeah. And hopefully when you go back there, you'll recognize ultimately, again, always safety first. A lot of people in domestic violence, abusive situations, I'm not suggesting Buddhist teachings does not say, oh, go to some Buddhist thing and then put yourself in danger. When you're in unsafe situations, the wisest, most compassionate Buddhist thing you can do is remove yourself from unsafe situations. But if it's not that, and it's just kind of everyday little stuff here and there, then yeah, you'll eventually figure out, how can I be with this over here, just like I am here?
It says that there are 3 ways in an uncomfortable situation to either distance yourself, like try to change, or accept the situation.
Sure.
It
Yeah.
depends, and it's how we actually respond to different situations.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it's beautiful. Thank you for sharing. All right, anything else before we close? Okay, so I think we'll end on that note. We'll join palms. May the benefit of this practice be shared with all beings in all directions. May all beings be at peace. May all be free from suffering. May any merit gained from this practice be transferred to those who need it most. So a few quick announcements before you all head out. Thank you all for being here. My name is Jeff. I'm a Dharma bump. We opened up this temple 17 years ago to introduce meditation and Buddhist practice to those who show up. Those of us who lead, we're not monks, we're not nuns, we're not gurus, we're not masters, we're not teachers, we're not looking for students. We're just practitioners. We're doing our best to take our understanding of Buddhist teachings and put it into terms that hopefully make sense so you can bring it into your everyday life. Just about every night we have different practices going on, different people leading from a different tradition. Quite a large recovery sangha, so anyone battling addiction, drugs, alcohol, or anything for that matter, that meets a handful of times a week. We're also adding a new, it won't be till the end of July, but we have our Recovery Dharma group that meets Friday nights. We're going to add another one on Wednesday night, on Monday night, the end of July. So it's still about a month off, but that'll start. And then about a month or so after that, we'll also add it on Wednesday. So we will ultimately have the Recovery Dharma program Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And again, that's in addition to the already 5 other classes we have with that. So I don't think necessarily anything out of the ordinary coming up. We have our wonderful garden crew that'll be outside pulling weeds and sweeping and raking up. So if you want to stick around and help take care of the space, that'd be great. There's also a list by the door. We don't have a cleaning crew. We are the toxic people and we are the cleaning crew. So if anybody wants to help out with anything, the list by the door. We appreciate it. And yeah, be safe. Wish you well. We'll see you soon. Thanks all.
Thank you.